Marcus Chen had always believed the war would end with humanity's extinction. For 3 years, the Zephyrian Empire had swept across human colonies like a plague of silver death, their crystalline ships carving through space with terrifying efficiency. Their warriors were legends of brutality, 7-foot-tall beings with metallic blue skin, forearms, and eyes that glowed like dying stars. They showed no mercy, took no prisoners, and left nothing but ash in their wake. So when Marcus found himself face to face with one in the ruins of New Geneva Station, his first instinct wasn't to fight. It was to laugh at the cosmic joke his life had become. The station's gravity generators had failed hours ago during the Zephyrian assault. Bodies and debris floated through the corridors like macabre confetti. Marcus had been trying to reach the escape pods when the emergency lights died, plunging him into darkness. He'd been feeling his way along the wall when his hand touched something warm and solid. "Don't move, human." The voice was melodic, almost musical, despite the universal translator's mechanical inflection. "I have weapons trained on you." Marcus froze, his heart hammering against his ribs. Slowly, he activated his suit's emergency light. The pale beam illuminated a Zephyrian warrior, but not like any he'd seen in the propaganda videos. This one was smaller, more graceful, with intricate patterns etched into her blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the light. Her forearms were positioned defensively, but Marcus noticed something that made him pause. She was injured. Dark silver blood seeped from a gash along her left side, and one of her secondary arms hung limp. "You're hurt," Marcus said, surprising himself with how calm he sounded. The warrior's glowing eyes narrowed. "Your concern is misplaced, human. I am still capable of ending your pathetic existence." "I'm sure you are." Marcus slowly reached into his medical kit, moving deliberately to avoid triggering her defensive instincts. "But you're also bleeding to death. That wound needs attention. Why would you help me?" The question carried genuine confusion. "My people have destroyed your worlds. Killed your kind by the millions." Marcus considered this as he pulled out medical supplies. The honest answer was complicated. He was tired of the war, tired of the killing, tired of the hate that had consumed both species. But, mostly, he was tired of being alone. He'd lost everyone, his family on Earth, his friends in the colonial fleet, his fiancée on Mars. In this floating graveyard, faced with an enemy who was also broken and bleeding, he found he had no fight left in him. "Because you're hurt," he said simply. "And because someone needs to break the cycle." The warrior, she introduced herself as Kaylin during the long hours that followed, allowed him to treat her wounds. Her blood was unlike anything in human physiology, but the basic principles of trauma care translated across species. As Marcus worked, they talked. First about medical procedures, then about the war, and, finally, about themselves. Kaylin was a scout, separated from her unit during the station assault. She'd been exploring human culture through their data networks when the attack began, trying to understand the species her people were systematically destroying. She spoke of growing doubts about the war, of questions that had no answers in Zephyrian doctrine. "Your people fascinate me," she admitted as Marcus sealed the wound with biofoam. "You're so resilient. Adaptable. We've conquered 17 species, but none have fought like humans do. None have shown such determination to survive against impossible odds. Is that why the Empire wants us dead? Because we're stubborn?" Kaylin's expression grew thoughtful. "The Empire fears what it cannot control. Humans represent chaos, unpredictability that threatens the order we've built across the galaxy. But, spending time in your data networks, studying your history, I see something else. I see hope." They were trapped together for 3 days while rescue teams cleared the station. 3 days of conversations that ranged from philosophy to poetry, from military tactics to childhood memories. Marcus learned that Zephyrians weren't the emotionless killing machines portrayed in human media. They felt deeply, loved fiercely, and questioned constantly. Kaylin learned that humans weren't the barbaric savages described in Empire propaganda. They were dreamers and builders, protectors and explorers. On the second night, as they shared rations and watched the stars through a damaged viewport, something shifted between them. The attraction had been building, an impossible connection between sworn enemies. When Kaylin reached out with one of her primary hands and touched Marcus's face, he didn't pull away. "This is madness," she whispered, her 4 eyes reflecting starlight. "The whole universe is mad," Marcus replied, covering her hand with his own. "At least this is beautiful madness." They made love with desperate tenderness, two souls finding solace in the ruins of their broken worlds. Her skin was warm despite its metallic appearance, and, where their bodies joined, Marcus felt something beyond physical pleasure, a connection that transcended species, war, and hatred. When the rescue teams finally arrived, Marcus and Kaylin went their separate ways. She disappeared into the chaos of the evacuation, and he was debriefed and reassigned. But something had changed in him. The war continued, but Marcus no longer felt the burning hatred that had sustained him. Instead, he carried hope that someday, somehow, the killing would end. Months passed. Marcus threw himself into his work as a xenobiologist, studying captured Zephyrian technology and looking for weaknesses. But his heart wasn't in it. Every alien artifact reminded him of Kaylin, of 3 days when the universe had made sense. Then came the day that changed everything. Marcus was in his laboratory on Titan Station when the proximity alarm sounded. A single Zephyrian ship had appeared at the edge of the system, not attacking, but broadcasting on open channels. The message was simple: "I seek the human called Marcus Chin." Security wanted to destroy the ship immediately, but Marcus convinced them to let him respond. When Kaylin's image appeared on the communication screen, his breath caught in his throat. She looked different, tired, worn, but there was something else. Her lower left arm cradled something against her chest. "Marcus," she said, her voice carrying across space with crystal clarity. "I need to see you. There's something you need to know." Against all regulations and common sense, Marcus authorized Kaylin to dock with the station. She came alone, walking through the airlock with the same fluid grace he remembered. But his eyes were drawn to what she carried, a small bundle wrapped in soft Zephyrian fabric. "What is that?" he asked, though part of him already knew. Kaylin's 4 eyes met his, and he saw love there, and fear, and desperate hope. "Our son," she said simply. The bundle stirred, and Marcus glimpsed a tiny face that was unmistakably his own, features blended with Kaylin's alien beauty. The child had human skin tone but, with the faint shimmer of Zephyrian heritage. His eyes were Marcus's brown, but they held depths that spoke of an intelligence beyond either species. Most remarkably, he had 4 arms like his mother, but they moved with a coordination that seemed almost supernatural. "How?" Marcus whispered, reaching out with trembling fingers to touch the baby's cheek. "Our geneticists said it was impossible," Kaylin replied. "No interspecies breeding had ever succeeded. But, you humans, you find ways to make the impossible happen." She looked down at their son with wonder. "He's perfect, Marcus. Strong like you, intelligent like my people, but something more. Something new." Marcus took the child in his arms, marveling at how right it felt. The baby opened his eyes and looked directly at his father, and Marcus felt a connection snap into place that was deeper than blood, stronger than DNA. This was his son, impossible, miraculous, and absolutely real. "What does this mean?" he asked. Kaylin's expression grew serious. "It means everything changes. The Empire's scientists are studying him, trying to understand how he exists. Some see him as an abomination, others as the key to our evolution. But, Marcus." She gripped his arm with her primary hand. "Some see him as hope. Proof that our species don't have to destroy each other." As if responding to his mother's words, the baby made a soft cooing sound and reached up with all 4 arms. 2 small hands grasped Marcus's fingers, while the other 2 reached toward Kaylin. In that moment, the 3 of them formed a complete circuit, and Marcus felt something shift in the universe itself. "What's his name?" Marcus asked. "I waited for you to decide. In Zephyrian culture, both parents must agree on the child's identity." Marcus looked down at his impossible son, this bridge between worlds, this living symbol of hope in a galaxy torn by war. One name came to him immediately, carrying weight and meaning across both their cultures. "Unity," he said. "His name is Unity." Kaelin smiled, the first truly happy expression he'd seen on her face since their reunion. Unity Chin Kael. Yes. It fits perfectly. As they stood together in the docking bay, holding their miraculous child, Marcus felt the future shifting around them. The war wasn't over, might never be over in their lifetime. But now there was something worth fighting for beyond survival. There was hope for a universe where human determination and Zephyrian wisdom could exist together, where two species could become one people. Unity squirmed in his arms and made a sound that wasn't quite human, wasn't quite Zephyrian, but was uniquely his own. Marcus smiled and held his son closer, already dreaming of the world he would help build for this impossible child. The first star of a new constellation had been born, and its light would shine across the galaxy. Brought back a child who looks like me. 5 years had passed since Unity's birth, and the galaxy had not grown kinder. If anything, the war had intensified. The Zephyrian Empire, faced with mounting human resistance and their own internal conflicts, had become more brutal. Human colonies were being blasted from orbit rather than invaded. The Empire had decided that complete extinction was preferable to continued resistance. But, in a hidden research facility on the outer rim of human space, something extraordinary was happening. Unity Chen Kael sat cross-legged on the floor of his father's laboratory, his forearms moving in perfect coordination as he assembled a quantum processor that would have challenged most graduate engineers. His human features had become more pronounced as he grew, but the Zephyrian heritage showed in his unusual height, the shimmer to his skin, and eyes that seemed to see beyond the visible spectrum. "Daddy, the crystals are singing again," Unity said without looking up from his work. His voice carried the musical quality of his mother's people, but with human emotional undertones that made every word feel alive. Marcus paused in his own research, looking over at his son with a mixture of pride and concern that never quite faded. Unity's abilities had been developing rapidly, far beyond what either human or Zephyrian children could achieve alone. He seemed to understand technology intuitively, could process multiple complex tasks simultaneously, and occasionally displayed what could only be described as precognitive abilities. "What are they telling you?" Marcus asked, setting down his datapad. Unity tilted his head, listening to something only he could hear. "There's going to be another attack. Soon. The Empire ships are moving toward Kepler Station." He looked up at his father with eyes that held too much knowledge for a 5-year-old. "We need to warn them." Marcus felt his blood run cold. Kepler Station housed over 2 million civilians. If Unity was right, and he was always right about these things, they had perhaps hours before another massacre. "How can you know that?" Marcus asked, though he was already reaching for the emergency communication array. "The quantum fields are disturbed. Everything is connected, Daddy. The Empire ships, our computers, even the thoughts in our heads, they all leave ripples in the same ocean." Unity's 4 hands continued their delicate work without pause. "Mama taught me to listen to the waves." Marcus had learned not to question his son's impossible knowledge. In the past 2 years, Unity's warnings had saved 6 human colonies and prevented the capture of a resistance fleet. The boy seemed to exist partially outside normal spacetime, processing information through channels that science couldn't yet explain. The communication array crackled to life, and Marcus broadcast the warning to Kepler Station's defense grid. Within minutes, confirmation came back. Long-range sensors had detected a Zephyrian fleet moving toward their system. The evacuation began immediately. "Good boy," Marcus said, kneeling beside Unity and placing a hand on his son's shoulder. "How many lives do you think we just saved?" "All of them," Unity replied with quiet certainty. "But, Daddy, that's not the important part." "What do you mean?" Unity finally set down his tools and looked directly at his father. In that moment, he seemed far older than his years, carrying wisdom that belonged to neither human nor Zephyrian traditions. "The Empire is splitting apart. Mama's faction is growing stronger, but so is the faction that wants to destroy everything human. There's going to be a civil war among the Zephyrians, and, when it happens, both sides will try to use humans as weapons against each other." Marcus felt the weight of impossible decisions settling on his shoulders. "What do we do?" "We build something new," Unity said simply. "Something that's neither human nor Zephyrian. Something that can save everyone. Before Marcus could ask what he meant, the laboratory security system activated. Someone was approaching through the facility's hidden corridors, someone with Zephyrian biosignatures. Marcus reached for his weapon, but Unity placed one of his small hands over his father's wrist. "It's Mama. And she's brought friends." The airlock cycled, and Kaylin emerged into the laboratory. But she wasn't alone. Behind her came 3 other Zephyrians, their markings and posture identifying them as high-ranking officers. Marcus recognized one of them from intelligence briefings, General Vexhai, one of the Empire's most feared commanders. "Kaylin," Marcus said carefully, his hand still near his weapon. "This is unexpected." Kaylin looked exhausted, her usual grace replaced by something that might have been desperation. "Marcus, we need your help. All of you." She gestured toward Unity, who had risen and was studying the newcomers with intense curiosity. General Vexhai stepped forward, his 4 massive arms crossed in a gesture of formal respect. "Human Marcus Chen, I come seeking alliance in the name of survival." Marcus almost laughed at the absurdity of the situation. "You want an alliance? Your people have been trying to exterminate mine for 8 years. And we were wrong," Vexhai replied, his musical voice carrying notes of something that might have been shame. "The Empire is dying, human. Our genetic diversity has stagnated. Our technology has reached its limits. Our society has become rigid beyond adaptation." He looked down at Unity, who was watching the exchange with rapt attention. "But, your child, he represents something we thought impossible. Evolution." Kaylin moved closer to Marcus, her 4 eyes bright with urgency. "Marcus, Unity isn't just our son. He's the first of a new species. Our scientists have been studying the genetic samples I provided, with your permission," she added quickly. "The hybrid vigor is extraordinary. Humans and Zephyrians together create something greater than either species alone." "What are you proposing?" Marcus asked. "A breeding program," General Vexhai said bluntly. "Voluntary, controlled, but extensive. We create a new generation of hybrids who can inherit the best qualities of both our peoples." Marcus felt sick. "You want to use humans as breeding stock?" "No," Unity said suddenly, his young voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "That's not what they're really asking for." All eyes turned to the child, who had moved to stand directly between the humans and Zephyrians. In the artificial light of the laboratory, his dual heritage was clearly visible: human determination in his stance, Zephyrian grace in his movements, and something uniquely his own in the way he commanded the attention of beings who could crush him without effort. "They're asking for hope," Unity continued, his 4 arms gesturing in complex patterns that seemed to convey meaning beyond words. "The Empire is fragmenting because they can't adapt fast enough to survive humanity's unpredictability. But humans are exhausted from fighting a war they can't win. Both species are dying. So what's the solution?" Marcus asked his son, marveling again at the child's impossible wisdom. Unity smiled, and in that expression Marcus saw both Kaylin's alien beauty and his own human warmth. "We don't create a breeding program. We create a society. A place where humans and Zephyrians can choose to live together, work together, love together. Where children like me are born from choice, not necessity." "Impossible," General Vexhai rumbled. "The Empire would never permit such a thing." "Then, we don't ask permission," Unity said with calm certainty. "We find a place where no one can stop us. Where people can come if they're tired of war and want to build something better." Kaylin knelt beside her son, her primary hand stroking his hair. "Do you know of such a place, little one?" Unity nodded enthusiastically. "The Nexus Sector. It's outside both human and Zephyrian space, full of dead worlds that can be terraformed. The quantum currents are strong there, good for communication, good for defense, good for growing things." Marcus stared at his son in amazement. "How do you know about the Nexus Sector?" "That information is classified." "The crystals remember everything," Unity said matter-of-factly. "They've been recording galactic history for millions of years. I just learned how to ask the right questions." For a long moment, the laboratory was silent except for the hum of equipment and the distant vibration of the facility's life support systems. Marcus looked around at the assembled beings, his lover, his son, and 3 Zephyrian officers who had risked everything to come here with an impossible proposal. "You're talking about desertion," he said finally. "For all of us. Humans who joined this colony would be branded as traitors. Zephyrians would be marked for execution." "Yes," Kalen replied simply. "But the alternative is extinction for both our species. The war has become self-perpetuating. Neither side can stop fighting because stopping means admitting defeat. But if we create something new, we prove that there's another way," Marcus finished. He looked down at Unity, who was watching him with patient confidence. "How many people would we need to start something like this?" 10,000 minimum, General Vexai said immediately. 5,000 from each species, carefully selected for genetic diversity, technical skills, and psychological stability. Enough to establish a sustainable colony with proper technological infrastructure. And ships to get them there. And supplies for the first years. And defenses in case either side decides to wipe us out. Marcus shook his head at the magnitude of what they were discussing. "It's insane." "All the best human ideas are insane," Unity said with a grin that was pure Marcus. "That's what makes them work." Over the next several hours, they planned the impossible. General Vexai had connections to moderate factions within the Empire who were growing tired of the endless war. Kalen had compiled lists of Zephyrian scientists, artists, and philosophers who questioned the Empire's destructive path. Marcus had contacts in the human resistance who might be willing to risk everything for a chance at real peace. As the plans took shape, Marcus watched his son contribute ideas and solutions with casual brilliance. Unity wasn't just a child caught between two worlds, he was the architect of a new one. Every suggestion he made revealed depths of understanding that seemed to come from sources beyond normal experience. "There's something I need to tell all of you," Unity said as the meeting drew toward a close. "I'm not the only one." "What do you mean?" Marcus asked. Unity's expression grew serious, taking on the weight of knowledge too vast for his young face. "There are others like me. Not many, but some. Secret relationships, hidden children, scattered across the galaxy. Most don't know about their abilities yet, but they're starting to wake up." Kalen gasped, her 4 hands flying to cover her mouth. "How many others?" 17 so far, Unity replied. "But there will be more. Love finds a way, even in war. Especially in war." He looked around at the assembled adults. "We're not just building a colony. We're gathering the first generation of a new species. And when we're all together." "What happens when you're all together?" Marcus asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. Unity's smile carried mysteries that spanned galaxies. "Then, everything changes, Daddy. Everything." As alarms began sounding in the distance, warning of approaching ships that would arrive too late to stop what had already been set in motion, Marcus realized that his son wasn't just planning to end the war. He was planning to transcend it entirely. The question was whether the galaxy was ready for what Unity and his generation would become. 10 years had passed since the founding of Haven Colony in the Nexus sector, and the galaxy had become something no one could have predicted. Marcus Chen stood on the observation deck of the orbital station that served as Haven's primary spaceport, watching ships arrive from across known space. Human vessels flew alongside Zephyrian craft, their crews working together with an efficiency that would have been unthinkable during the war. But these weren't the same ships that had once torn the galaxy apart. These vessels bore the elegant curves of hybrid technology, human innovation merged with Zephyrian precision to create something entirely new. At 15, Unity had grown into something that defied easy categorization. He stood nearly 7 feet tall, his human features refined by Zephyrian genetic influence into an otherworldly beauty. His 4 arms moved with unconscious grace as he interfaced directly with the station's quantum systems, his consciousness flowing through digital networks as easily as his physical body moved through space. But Unity was no longer unique. Around him, 18 other hybrid children worked in perfect coordination, their minds linked in ways that transcended individual consciousness. They had become something unprecedented, a collective intelligence that maintained individual personalities while sharing a common purpose. "The Council is ready to receive us," Unity announced, though his mouth didn't move. His voice echoed directly in Marcus's mind through the quantum communication network the children had developed. "Both the human delegation and the Zephyrian Empire representatives have agreed to the summit." Marcus shook his head in wonder. The war had officially ended 3 years ago, not through military victory but through simple irrelevance. As more colonies like Haven appeared throughout the Nexus sector, traditional human and Zephyrian societies had found themselves increasingly isolated. Trade, technology, and cultural exchange flowed through the hybrid settlements, making the old conflicts seem pointless and destructive. "Are you sure about this?" Marcus asked his son. "Once we make this proposal, there's no going back." Unity turned to face his father, and Marcus saw depths in those brown eyes that seemed to contain the wisdom of civilizations yet to be born. "Daddy, we stopped going back the moment you decided to treat Mama's wounds instead of letting her die. Everything since then has been moving toward this moment." The chamber where the historic meeting was taking place had been designed by the hybrid children themselves, its architecture flowing in patterns that spoke to both human psychology and Zephyrian aesthetics while adding elements that belonged to neither. Crystalline walls pulse with soft bioluminescence, while curved surfaces created acoustic properties that made every voice sound harmonious regardless of its origin. Around the circular table sat the most unlikely gathering in galactic history. Admiral Sarah Chen, representing the Human Colonial Federation, sat across from Overlord Kethmiran, Supreme Commander of the Zephyrian Empire. Between them were arranged the leaders of 12 different hybrid colonies, their very presence a testament to how much the galaxy had changed. But all eyes were on Unity as he entered the chamber, followed by his fellow hybrids. At 15, he had become the unofficial spokesperson for their generation, though Marcus knew the title barely captured his son's true role. Unity wasn't just speaking for the children, he was channeling the collective will of an entire emerging species. "Honored delegates," Unity began, his voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate in the quantum structure of reality itself. "We gather here not to negotiate the terms of peace, but to announce the birth of something new." Admiral Chan leaned forward, her expression skeptical. "What exactly are you proposing, young man?" Unity smiled, and his fellow hybrids arranged themselves around the room in a pattern that created a subtle energy field. Marcus could feel it, a presence that seemed to expand beyond the physical boundaries of the chamber. "We're not proposing anything," Unity replied. "We're offering evolution." With a gesture from Unity's forearms, the chamber's walls came alive with images, not projected holograms, but direct quantum impressions that appeared in the minds of everyone present. They saw the galaxy as the hybrid children perceived it, a vast web of interconnected consciousness, where every thinking being contributed to a growing tapestry of collective wisdom. "For the past 10 years, you've watched our colonies grow and prosper," Unity continued. "You've seen our technology advance beyond what either humans or Zephyrians could achieve alone. You've witnessed our children display abilities that seem magical to your understanding. But what you haven't understood is that this is just the beginning." The images in their minds shifted, showing visions of worlds transformed, dead planets blooming with life, ancient conflicts resolved through understanding rather than force, civilizations working together to explore mysteries that spanned galaxies. "We offer every human and every Zephyrian the opportunity to join us," Unity said. "Not through conquest or conversion, but through choice. Those who wish to remain as they are will be honored and protected. But those who seek something greater..." Overlord Kethmiran stood abruptly, his forearms trembling with what might have been fear or fury. "You speak of the extinction of our species." "No," Unity replied calmly. "We speak of their transcendence." One of the other hybrid children, a girl named Serenity whose Zephyrian mother had been a philosopher and whose human father had been a poet, stepped forward. When she spoke, her words carried the weight of absolute truth. "Neither humanity nor the Zephyrian Empire will survive the next century in their current forms. Your birth rates are declining, your genetic diversity is narrowing, your societies are becoming too rigid to adapt to changing galactic conditions. But, together, merged into something new, you become something that can endure forever." Marcus watched the faces around the table, seeing fear, wonder, and dawning comprehension. These were leaders who had spent their lives thinking in terms of politics, military strategy, and species survival. They were being asked to consider concepts that transcended everything they had known. "What you're describing," Admiral Chen said slowly, "it sounds like the end of human individuality. The loss of what makes us who we are." Unity's expression grew gentle, and, when he responded, Marcus heard echoes of every conversation they'd shared over the years, father teaching son, son surpassing father, both growing together towards something unprecedented. "Admiral, look at me. Do I seem less human because of my Zephyrian heritage? Do I seem less Zephyrian because of my human DNA?" Unity gestured toward his fellow hybrids. "We haven't lost our individual identities. We've expanded them. We can think as humans think, feel as Zephyrians feel, and experience reality in ways that neither species could achieve alone." "But, the collective consciousness you're describing," Overlord Kethmiran interjected. "It violates the fundamental principle of individual autonomy." "Does it?" Serenity asked. "When you love someone, do you lose yourself or do you become more than you were? When you work toward a common goal with others, does cooperation diminish you or strengthen you?" She smiled with innocent wisdom. "What we offer is love and cooperation on a scale that spans worlds. Not the loss of self, but the discovery of a greater self." For hours, the debate continued. Questions were raised about free will, genetic integrity, cultural preservation, and the risks of such radical change. The hybrid children answered each concern with patience and insight that demonstrated their unique perspective. They spoke of maintaining diversity within unity, of preserving the best qualities of both species while leaving behind the limitations that had led to war. As the discussion progressed, Marcus noticed something remarkable happening. The longer the delegates spent in the presence of the hybrid children, the more their hostility faded. The quantum field generated by the young hybrids seemed to promote empathy and understanding, allowing each person to experience the perspectives of others with unprecedented clarity. "There's something else you should know," Unity said as the formal discussions drew to a close. "This choice isn't just being offered to humans and Zephyrians. We've made contact with 17 other species across this galaxy and beyond. Many have already begun their own integration programs. The implications hit everyone simultaneously. This wasn't just about ending the human-Zephyrian conflict. It was about reshaping the nature of consciousness itself on a galactic scale." "How many?" Admiral Chen whispered. "Currently? About 50 million beings across all species. But the growth is exponential." Unity's four eyes gleamed with possibilities that span eons. "Within a century, we estimate that over 90% of galactic consciousness will exist in hybrid form. Not through force or coercion, but through choice. Through the simple recognition that unity is stronger than division." Overlord Kethmiran sank back into his chair, his massive frame suddenly seeming fragile. "You're talking about the transformation of galactic civilization itself." "Yes," Unity replied simply. "And it's already begun. The question isn't whether it will happen, the question is whether traditional humans and Zephyrians will choose to be part of it or be left behind." In the silence that followed, Marcus felt the weight of history settling around them. His son, his impossible, miraculous son, wasn't just offering peace between two warring species. He was offering evolution itself. "What do you need from us?" Admiral Chen asked finally. "Nothing," Unity replied. "Those who choose integration will come to us. Those who prefer to remain unchanged will be protected and supported. We ask only that you don't try to prevent others from making their own choices." "And, in return?" Unity's smile carried the warmth of his human father and the ancient wisdom of his Zephyrian mother, merged into something entirely new. "In return, you get to watch your species grow beyond everything you thought possible. You get to see your children become gods." The summit concluded with formal agreements that would have been unthinkable years before. Humans and Zephyrians would maintain their separate societies for those who chose tradition, but movement to the hybrid colonies would be unrestricted. Technology and knowledge would flow freely between all groups. Most importantly, the children would be protected and allowed to develop their abilities without interference. Later, as the delegates departed and the station returned to its normal rhythms, Marcus found himself alone with Unity on the observation deck. Father and son stood together, watching ships carry news of the meeting to every corner of the galaxy. "Are you proud of what you've accomplished?" Marcus asked. Unity considered the question with the careful thought Marcus remembered from his childhood. "I'm grateful," he said finally. "Grateful that you and Mama chose love over hatred. Grateful that you raised me to see possibility instead of limitations. Grateful that I get to be part of building something beautiful." What happens next? Now we grow. And we explore. And we discover what consciousness becomes when it's no longer limited by individual minds or single species. Unity placed one of his 4 hands on his father's shoulder. And we remember that all of this started with one human who decided to help an injured enemy instead of walking away. As they stood together watching the stars, Marcus marveled at the impossible journey that had brought them here. From a chance encounter in a ruined space station to the transformation of galactic civilization itself. From 2 beings from warring species to the parents of a new form of life. Unity was right, it had all begun with a single choice to help instead of harm, to love instead of hate. And now that choice was rippling outward through space and time, transforming everything it touched. The war was over. The future had begun. And, in the vast tapestry of galactic consciousness that was slowly awakening, 2 small threads, one human, one Zephyrian, were woven together so tightly they could never again be separated. Marcus smiled and held his son close, knowing that whatever came next, they would face it together. After all, that's what families do.